very good evening, viewers at home. I am delighted to be joined by Dr. Naiefa Rashied, a senior lecturer and an activist who is here to discuss the Rethinking Economics for Africa Festival, a dynamic event that combines art, activism, and education to raise awareness about the ongoing struggle of the Palestinian people. Now, this innovative festival brings together students and community members to engage in creative activities that explore the economic and political realities facing Palestine with the aim of fostering understanding, empathy, and solidarity across borders and cultures. Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah so much for joining us, Doctor.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Now, for those who missed the event, can you just kindly give us a brief overview on today's event?
So today's event was hosted by Rethinking Economics for Africa. So it's an initiative that comprises of students, academia, civil society, and the whole purpose of the institution, or the whole reason it originates, is because in academia specifically and in university, the curriculum that exists is very Eurocentric. So the whole purpose of the festival that took place today and the whole purpose of the organization is to help make economics a little bit more decolonial and a little bit more realistic, especially for South Africans.
And with that, how would you describe the atmosphere today in terms of, being on campus and, what was it all like?
So it was incredibly vibrant.
Okay.
And I think the reason it was vibrant and students were excited is because a lot of the speakers were able to link Palestine and Sudan and Congo and all of the wars around the world with real economic theory. So politics students, economics students, even students from the humanities were able to um, see exactly how whatever it is they were learning in the classroom takes place or unfolds in real life.
And Dr. Haif, I want to find out from you in terms of the ongoing impact. What hopes do you have for the students who, were part of the festival and were at the event in question?
So our idea is awareness mainly, and to get students to ask questions, because I think many undergraduate students specifically are very nervous, very shy. Myself as well, when I just started university, you just assume when you get into that lecture hall that whatever the person is, the person standing in front of you, you just assume that they know what they're talking about and everything that they're saying is 100% correct, which is not always the case. Things are debatable. So I think the main aim for today was just to encourage students to ask questions and to do so in a confident and free space.
Speaking of, usually students of that age group or in that space, usually they become quite intimidated or just hesitant in terms of being part of such conversation or even asking questions. Why is it important for students to engage in these conversations, even if they may be difficult or challenging at that?
I think the earlier that students start engaging, the easier it would be for them to understand what's happening around them. And so, especially the students who attended today, you can see that they were quite keen to ask these questions, and specifically around global politics and how that would affect South Africa's economy. So I think the earlier the students start, the better it would be for their learning process. And us as a society, I think that if students are engaging earlier on, then I think we have a better chance of solving some of our societal problems much earlier on.
And we know when we look at human rights, it's something that is continuously, violated. I mean, on a very micro level, we're seeing here in South Africa where people are living in impoverished circumstances, and you're seeing it in a more exacerbated manner where you look at Palestine, you look at Congo, you look at Sudan. And this brings me to, to just find out from you, Doctor, in terms of what role can educational institution play in fostering greater awareness and understanding around international human rights?
So I think universities in South Africa, they are in a unique position in that they, on the one hand, they are supposed to be beacons of academic freedom and free speech. But on the other hand, we know that public institutions are, they're usually short on funds, and sometimes they tend to take donations, perhaps, from international organizations that might want them to align in a specific way. So I think higher education in South Africa needs to really take a step back, and they need to be able to distinguish between free speech and funding mechanisms. So I think there is a lot of work to be done with higher education specifically. I think if you read the news, you'll notice that very few higher education institutions have spoken out about these various issues, which is a shame because one would expect higher education in South Africa, of all places, to have spoken out first, especially because South Africa's, through ICJ, the case with Israel, it's been quite, the world is watching what South Africa is doing. And so higher education, this is the ideal time for them to actually take a stand, even question the internal funding mechanisms, reevaluate where they might be getting their funding from. The fact that a lot of them are silent, I think already says a lot. And I think higher education South Africa really needs to evaluate their current position, and particularly around funding.
And I know you gave us a brief overview generally in terms of the event and also just the atmosphere around, how the students were, taking in this, event in question. I just want to find out from you, were there any specific moments that you feel really captured the solidarity and passion of the participants?
So I think the plenary session at the beginning was wonderful. It brought everyone together. We had fantastic speakers. So Fiona Tragena, Trevor Ngwane, Tessa Dooms, and they were able to marry a lot of what's happening in the world today with some of the theories that the students are exposed to. Trevor even brought in, the question of Jeffrey Epstein and how that might be linked to imperialism, which is not a link that people see easily and quickly. And so that, I think the plenary was a standout. There were also other sessions like the township economy, which was chaired by Professor Bulewa Mapela. And there was also the Just Transition session, which was one of the speakers was Prof. Sam Ashman. And both of those sessions were important because they also spoke a lot about resources. And so when we think about Palestine and Sudan and Congo, it's also important to understand the resource implications that exist and why these places are always at the center of all of this, quote, conflict. And they really did an excellent job at bringing together all of these points and making students understand the importance of resources and the role that resources play in conflict.
Oh, I so wish I was there right now because I mean, after all, on a simple thinking, you feel like, okay, why do people have to go through such lengths to sort of steal or just, forcefully take resources in that sense? And I think that would have been such a great opportunity for me to actually understand why. Because as some people would like to say, sometimes resources can tend to be a curse for the nation, but I just differ to look at it like that. I refuse, and I feel like if I was there, I was going to get a more clearer picture and understanding in terms of that context. But in terms of, envisioning South Africa and seeing how in the past and currently we continue to show our solidarity with the people of Palestine, how do you envision the broader South Africa continuing in that pathway of being in solidarity with Palestine, or just in the context of international human rights causes?
So I think we're fortunate in that our constitution is quite progressive. So there are lots of spaces where young South Africans can get involved and people can continue to question. So I think the first important thing is, regardless of where you work, regardless of where you study, think about where your institution might stand, and think about where maybe your institution is getting its funding from. Think about, BDS, boycott, divestment, and sanctions. That is a very powerful tool that South Africans need to start using a lot more to assert some of our value principles. So I think there's a lot of room for us to maneuver in the social justice space in South Africa. I think because of our past, we do have appetite for it in South Africa, and because of our constitution, we have the freedom to do that. I think it's just about us asserting that and also creating public spaces. Another thing that is very important is interfaith dialogue, because I do notice that there's a difference of opinion among Christian South Africans on the issue of Palestine. So it's very important for us to understand these different perspectives. So I think there's so many things that South Africans can do to stay engaged with the issues in Palestine, Sudan, Congo. There's still so much work to be done.
Mm. And with that being said, what would you say to students who are inspired by today's events and want to get involved in the movement?
So I would say get in touch with us. I mean, we have ample platforms for students to write. We have ongoing seminars, students can attend free of charge. We have at least one every month. So I think it's important for students to attend, express themselves. It's a very safe space. And also write for us. We have newsletters and we have tons of opportunities for students to get involved. So I think the best thing would be for them to just get in touch and start getting involved in the conversation.
Mm. And lastly, Doctor, as I close off our conversation, any closing thoughts, considering our conversation tonight and just the great work that you and your team are doing?
No, I just want to say thanks to you for the opportunity. It's wonderful to be able to talk about this so openly. I know that South Africa, given our past, people would think that it would be easy to talk about these things, but there are still difficulties in our society in talking about issues around Palestine and Sudan and Congo. And I feel like these are the types of platforms that will help us get through to the broader public and general society and the world outside of academia that isn't always exposed to the nitty-gritties of the politics and the economics, but who are still very much interested in what's going on. So I really appreciate it, and hopefully we can have some more time on your show in the future.
Inshallah. Dr. Jazakallah so much for joining us. Jazakallah so much.
Ameen. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Viewers at home, that was the senior lecturer as well as activist Dr. Naiefa Rashied, who really was giving us a highlight around the Rethinking Economics for Africa Festival and just giving us an intake in terms of, moving forward, what we should consider. And really, as much as we are grateful and we understand and the privileges of living in South Africa, let us utilize that and be voices of the voiceless in championing the truth for them and really showing or rather raising awareness around some of the human rights violations that are occurring in other parts of the world, even in South Africa. But for now, let's head over to an ad break. We'll see you just after this.